Today we're reviewing the book, and boom, Bob's your uncle, and for real, Fanny is your aunt.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we dig into the questions,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people have had the opportunity to read this book, a few chapters, if any at all. So for that reason, we're gonna have a very quick reading. The stories are very short and sharp, like less than 5 minutes each. So go ahead and let's read, and then we'll take it from.
All right, I'm going to take one of the stories from the book.
It's not a storybook, but there are case studies. I'd
rather describe them as
case studies, not really stories. So I'm just going to read this quickly because it sets the tone for the fact that many people hide behind masks. And it's very important that we look behind the masks in marriage. Henry came from an upper middle class family background. He was the eldest of 4. His father was a lawyer with his own thriving practice, and his mother was a principal of a large government model secondary school. His mother had subsequently started a school of her own that had done extremely well. Her school was the go-to school for children far and wide in their country. The school had progressed rapidly and had graduated to having a secondary school with full boarding facilities. Henry's parents owned the 4-bedroom duplex they lived in. He shared a room with his brother, and his sisters shared another, and his parents had the master bedroom. The 4th room was used as a guest room, a study, and storage. They'd always had enough of everything they needed, plus the occasional luxuries. For instance, when he was 15, they'd all traveled on vacation to London for 2 weeks. Another time, his dad had bought a brand new car 2 years in a row, first for his mom, then for himself. Neither his dad nor his mom was prone to excess. They were prudent and constantly taught him and his siblings about the value of money. They got pocket money regularly, but always just enough for what might be needed. Some allowances were tied to things they had to do in the house, for the house or for either parent. When he got into the university, during each holiday, his father usually connected him with one of his many friends for some form of vacation job. He was expected to save that money towards a particular project or goal. Henry grew up to be serious-minded, goal-oriented, and financially prudent. He had studied law like his dad, but had veered off into financial consulting. He had taken professional exams to advance himself in this area and was currently an assistant manager in one of the top financial institutions in the country. His line manager had commented in his most recent assessment that Henry's knowledge, skills, and understanding of company culture was exceptional. He was well respected, worked extremely well with others, and for those virtues, Henry's line manager recommended him for a promotion. Henry earned a decent salary for a 28-year-old. He lived in a nicely furnished 3-bedroom apartment in a nice area of town. He had bought himself a new car with some of his savings and with some help from dad, and was considered quite an eligible catch by many in his organization. Yadera had grown up in the lap of luxury. Her father was a billionaire, the current chairman of the bank he had founded some 20 years ago. He was ranked as one of the top 10 richest men in the country. Her mother dabbled in interior design, but picked and chose the kind of projects she wanted to execute. They were mostly her dad's rich friends, their various offices, and she was mainly a woman of leisure, traveling at whim and loving to shop. Her time was predominantly her own, and as such, she had been present at every recital, every half-term, every parent-accompanied school trip. Every parent-accompanied school trip that Yadera and her siblings had ever participated in. Yadera was born in America, had traveled every single year of her life up till the time she met Henry. She fell in love with him, and they got married. When she was younger, she and her 2 siblings always traveled first class with her parents. As they got older and her dad got richer, he purchased a jet that they began to use on family vacations, especially, and this was often, when these trips coincided with daddy's business trips. They owned a beautiful home in London in affluent St. John's Wood and another in Hoboken, New Jersey. Daddy was generous. He would always say that he wanted only the best for his princesses, Yadera and her sister. He didn't want them to be enticed by what any man could give them. Therefore, Yadera and her sister's vacation allowance was more than enough. Some might even call it excessive. Birthday gifts were expensive designer bags or jewelry, and sometimes gifts came just because. For her 21st birthday, as she graduated from the University of London, Daddy had gifted her a white Wrangler Jeep. She loved it. Yadera and Henry had met at a novelty interbank football match. After they got married, issues arose right from the onset. Daddy had wanted to give them a luxury flat in one of the most exclusive areas in their city, but Henry had declined. Yadera had an arrangement with Chief Uwem, who had been the chef in Yadera's family home from the time she was 10 years old, to make the week's meals and have them delivered to her home with Henry every weekend. Henry had a problem with that too. He wasn't obnoxious about it, but she could tell that he didn't like it. Yadera constantly wanted to travel on a whim, and try as she might, she just couldn't abide traveling in economy, not even premium economy. She had tried it once when Henry had insisted that that was what they could afford. He had told her that they needed to be prudent with expenses and build from the ground up. She couldn't stand it. She had made up her mind that she wouldn't be doing that again. So that's Henry and Yadera. And there's Kunle and Katara that had tribal issues. There's 4 case studies that deal with the various issues that two people coming together might not examine, and this translates into their marriage. And boom, Bob can really become your uncle, and Fanny can actually become your aunt.
Fantastic. She's really answered all the questions in that short 5 minutes. But we will get through this. Okay. Do I need to ask you question number 1? Because I think it's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
The title is humorous. It's intriguing. I think it's a British saying.
Yes,
right?
when they say boom,
Okay.
Bob's your aunt. They say Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt.
But let's break it down to the nitty-gritty. What does it actually mean within the context of this book, beyond just being a very attractive title to draw, traffic or patronage?
Okay, the truth is I've been married for 33 years. I can't even believe it myself, you understand? And the truth of the matter is when you get into marriage, literally, Batty Bob can become your uncle, and Freaky Fanny can become your aunt. And you may not even be able to examine all the things that happen or that you're going to meet when you get into that marriage. And the premise of this book is that before one ever meets somebody they want to marry, they really need to ask certain kinds of questions and interact in certain ways before you ever meet anybody. And that's why it applies to all of us here. If you have young people who have not even met their life partner, for those who are dating seriously, those who are engaged, those of us in marriage that God is helping, there's a continuous need for discovery, because literally many of us already in marriage have actually found that Bob is now our uncle and Fanny is now our aunt. So it talks about beginning from the beginning, from before you meet anybody to when you're dating to in. So that's the title, that you need to be careful, even in marriage, because boom, Bob does become your uncle, and you find that Fanny, really, Freaky Fanny, is your aunt.
All right. The central idea, or the central ideas
Yes.
in this book, is that we just don't marry a person.
Yes.
We marry them, their entire family,
Yep.
the family system, values, beliefs, wounds, conditioning, everything.
Yep.
Why do you think that this consideration is so underestimated, especially in this generation?
I think it's underestimated because what we call love, you see, if any of us thought about love now, myself included, it tends to be that, I don't know, butterfly kind of feeling, I just really love them. For our young people, but even me, I'm 61, and I still want that feathery sort of butterfly in your stomach kind of feeling. So we underestimate it because we feel that feelings alone will sustain a marriage, and it will not. I mean, not to get all Christianese here. The thing is, you have to count the cost before you begin a building. And many of us don't, especially in the area of marriage. We prepare for everything else, for careers. Laterna didn't start in a day. It started somewhere. The cost was counted. You look at what it's going to cost you, how you're going to do it, what the market is saying. When it comes to marriage, for some reason, and if you want me to go all spiritual here, maybe because that's the bedrock of society, and so the enemy attacks it. The truth of the matter is, that we don't consider this in marriage because we reckon marriage is just going to work because we love each other, because we're good Christians, for the Christian people, because you speak in tongues. Everybody thinks it's just going to work. But everything that needs to be built, you have to be intentional about building it. We underestimate it because we think love is going to be enough, and it just isn't.
I'm sitting here and I'm wondering how. Please put your hands together. Back in the day, we had this whole. I mean, way back in the day, even before I got married, we had this cultural system whereby if you brought somebody home, there were members of the family that would go on a fact-finding mission, go and find out what kind of family he's from, what ailments exist, blah 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 blah, and so on and so forth. Could it be, again, I'm playing the devil's advocate,
Yes.
but I stand
Yes.
for this young generation too, as a mini shield I will dodge when it's time. Could it be that because this tradition, this part of our tradition, was abused, taken beyond reasonable measures, causing the youngins to elope, for want of a better word? So my question is, are we in some way to blame for eroding or abusing that system? Why do you think that system deteriorated or no longer exists?
Well, I think in some cases it does, but it's whether the young people will listen. And this is why, I am passionate about marriage. In fact, sometimes when I get on the topic, I become so animated and I look at myself later and I'm thinking, please, you need to calm down. But the truth of the matter is, for every single person here, whether you have biological children of marriageable age, whether you have people in your sphere, young people in your sphere of influence, we need to tell them this thing, because those of us who are married or have been in relationships that could have led to marriage know for a fact that you need to know the person. See, apple know they both wrong. That's the truth. And as the word says, everything reproduces after its own kind. Whether you're a spiritual person or not a spiritual person, you can never plant orange and get apple. It doesn't happen in the physical world. And so those, yes, maybe they were abused, but we have to tell our young people how important it is that you know what is in a person. You see, knowing what is in a person doesn't necessarily mean don't marry them in some circumstances. Why do I say this? If, for instance, somebody had a physical ailment, say in a family there's obesity or there's diabetes or there's glaucoma, in discovering that somebody has those kind of ailments doesn't necessarily mean, okay, that means I can't marry the person. But it does mean that you're aware that this exists. Therefore, maybe we might need to watch our sugar. Maybe we may need to do our eye tests every year or something. You understand? You take measures to do that. And so I don't know if the system was abused. I'm Igbo. In Igbo land, you go and ask about the people and all that, and those things are relevant. When I met my husband, and funnily enough, I met my husband through Mrs. Morgan, actually, yes. That's how I met my husband, through Mrs. Morgan. You see, I remember a letter my father wrote me. Where does he, there's a word, my father was a lawyer, not antecedents. Who are his antecedents? One long letter he wrote, sadly. Sadly, this was not in the day of social media, so it was a physical letter, and I put it in the wash one day. It was in my jeans pocket, and that letter was a masterpiece. Where does he descend from? Where does he something? My in-laws are here today. He asked all kinds of questions, and I'm sure they asked all kinds of questions about me. This is what we have to tell our young people. Those of us in it already know that there's some things you discovered that may have been there that you overlooked. So we need to tell them. Maybe it was abused, I don't know, but it's a system that must come back, because rabbits, they're born frogs. It's as simple as that. The apple never falls very far from the tree.
True. Yep. That was well articulated. All right. In your book, you introduced the concept of pre-marital classes, PPMCs. What are they, and why do you believe that preparation for marriage should begin long before someone even meets a potential spouse? And by preparing long before you meet a potential spouse, what exactly do you mean?
Okay, I gave out masks today because all of us are kind of, I don't use the word hide, but in a sense hide behind masks. Nobody ever exposes everything about themselves. I may even have a very close friend who knows a lot about me, but just natural human nature and preservation makes you're never going to bear yourself completely. So premarital classes is somebody looking in the mirror at themselves. Everything I do, it has a Christian ethos. No offense to anybody not of my faith, but the truth of the matter is, the number one bestseller of all times tells us that you should look in the mirror. When you look at what kind of man you are, and when you leave, don't forget what kind of man you are. It's very important that we examine ourselves. PPMCs are that you yourself go back and start with the man in the mirror. You're going to have to remove all the things obscuring your own vision before you can clearly see to pick somebody or to remove anything blocking that person's vision. So PPMCs, premarital classes, everybody talks about premarital classes, and I've been a premarital counselor in a Christian church setting for over 25 years. By the time people come for this counseling, they've already made their choice. It's a fait accompli. Many of them are already physically intimate. So anything you're saying then is going in from one ear and coming out from the other. Many of the things they've already learned, they preclude them even learning anything more about what to do. So if your premarital classes have to do with who are you? What are you? What do you want? What do you believe in?
Yep.
What do you know about yourself? What are the things you've seen growing up that could even affect any relationship you enter into with another person? No matter what I learn about communication, if where I'm coming from, communication was never done properly, and I've not realized that I've taken in things that are not going to aid my relationship and begin to work on them before I meet somebody, then it's a problem. So premarital classes help you deal with you, help you look into the mirror of you, help you build the self-esteem of you. Because, for instance, if I know I want to reach the pinnacle of my profession in whatever endeavor I choose, then I go and hook myself up with a man who is challenged by my success, challenged by my whatever, who wants a woman in the kitchen, who even if I'm successful, I shouldn't be too successful because, hey, I'm the man. You see, you have a problem. If you have not identified that in yourself, then, because you see, once you do PPMCs, you remove a number of people that should not even be contenders. You understand? You kick those to the curb as they approach you.
It's
By the time you've had...
It's an elimination process. And let's be honest. Let me say it in local parlance.
Yes.
Now woman, they choose man. I think several men will present themselves, and then you decide that, oh, it is this one that I want. I find that many of us make that life-changing decision before we fully
come into ourselves,
who we are, what we want, our vision for our life. So yes, in other words, and to double down on what you said, because it completely resonates with me, PPMCs would include character development, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, your needs, your wants,
your desires, your
communications,
communications
and then finding a partner that fits into that.
Exactly, that aligns with that to a large degree.
What about this famous saying, I will change him, I will change her? What do you say about that?
I would just say that those of us who are married, we already know that that is not a thing. You're not going to change anybody. You're not God. Even God has difficulty sometimes. Well, let me not use difficulty. But even God, you really need to want to change. You see, change will always come by someone even recognizing that something is wrong. And a lot of the things that people grew up with have introduced things that are so deeply ingrained in them. There's something, when you talk about, there's something I was looking at one time about, what do they call it? The synapses in the brain. I don't know if we have any psychologists there. The brain actually has wired pathways.
Yep.
And so if a person, what they've grown up with, what they've experienced, has redirected the pathway of their neurals, whatever, you're going to have to redirect it. And that person has to come to them. You cannot change unless you accept that something is wrong. And it's very difficult for people to do that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And my lady, you've answered question number 4.
Yes.
Because we've just broken down why self-awareness is so important. It's such a critical foundation for healthy relationships. If you don't know what you want, you can't pick a partner that works for you. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Many people believe that love is enough.
Love is enough.
Love is enough. Many people believe that love is enough. Your book respectfully challenges that idea. And the question is, if love alone is not enough, what else must be present for a marriage to thrive?
Oh my God, alignment, communication, discussions about what you want, you understand? Because you see, if I ask everybody in here, myself included, I'm a romantic, I'm telling you through and through. If I asked everybody in here to define love, the answers will come up with, in fact, people have difficulty defining it. But if they were pressed and they didn't think anyone was going to judge them, they're going to say, you know, you just really want to be with the person. You just kind of really love the person. You just sound handsome. He speaks to me like, when are you... You understand? When he touches me, oh my God, you know, when I see her. But the truth of the matter is, it cannot sustain the marriage. True story. What my pastor is late now told me one time about somebody who got married, carried her over the threshold. The husband carried her over a threshold, went to the fridge, brought out a bottle, smashed it on the table, and said to her, "You are no longer in your father's house. You are now in my house." True story. Now, what I want to say is the thing that will make a person do that, I'm telling you, you needed to have seen it. These things about it, that's one. And no matter how your body was doing before he broke that bottle, after that bottle, your body will set.
Temperature will change.
So, yes, it will, yes. So the truth of the matter is that kind of love is not enough. And if we look at the definition of love in this number one bestseller of all time that I always reference, not to offend anybody, love is not just, it's not a feeling. Love is really an action, and it's motivated by will. You understand? You decide to love. It's a verb. I'm not saying it's easy, not saying I perfected it, but the truth is that is what love really is, because in marriage, so many things, what the union needs to sustain and achieve cannot be borne by feeling alone, because I can sometimes wake up happy, I can sometimes wake up sad, there's so many ways feelings are ephemeral. Is it the word ephemeral? Yes, they're fleeting, they change. If they inject you, we have some medical people here, if they inject you with, is it dopamine now, you will be happy. They inject you with maybe cortisol, you're going to be down. It's a hormonal thing. You have to take control of your will. So no, love, the kind that we talk about, is not enough. It needs to be a love that is motivated by will. And that's why marriage is so serious. You know, people talk about excelling, being entrepreneurial. Everything is underpinned by marriage. In fact, if I were to say, and I was the MD of some multi-conglomerate, every person in my whatever needs to know what love is. Real love that can hold covenant, that can go through sickness, illness, happiness, sadness, lots of money, no money. Life is broad.
Okay, I grew up in the era of Mills and Boon.
Oh, I know, yeah. And Barbara Cartland.
Mills, and I wholeheartedly, with my full chest, blame Mills and Boon
for this
for my warped vision of what relationships and love should be.
Yeah.
Now, I say this to ask, do you think that pop culture, the media, things that we see, things that we consume, the movies we watch, also give a distorted version of what love and relationship and commitment should be?
For absolute sure. You see, Happily Ever After, I saw this somewhere, it's not original to me, but I can't remember who I should attribute it to. Happily Ever After is a story that hasn't ended yet. Happily Ever After is a story that has not ended yet. And the prince, they rode off into the sunset, and they lived happily ever after. They didn't talk about the time when maybe the son didn't come out. They didn't talk about the time when she was in the hospital and she was in labor and he had to hold her hand. They didn't talk about the time where maybe he now looked at her somehow and said, "Why are you wearing that tiara like that? I don't like it." They didn't talk about all that when it's just happily ever after. So yes, it's a warped view. You see, it's there's something, an article I wrote one time, I want the fairy tale. Is the fairy tale real? And my answer to that question would be yes and no. Because sometimes the answer is not this or that. The answer is this and that. So is the fairy tale real? Yeah, to a degree, but it needs to be worked on. Anything built must be built. So people ask me, so how do you stay married? You stay married by staying married. You understand? So I'll just say that, yes, it has given us a warm view. I grew up on those things. To date, my favorite whatever genre is romantic comedy, rom-coms. I'm not even going to mention the one I like the most here because let me not be judged. But suffice it. But I love love. I do. I love love, but love must be worked out.
So how do we balance that out? Because everywhere you turn, I mean, okay, we are fully formed, been through the fire, come out the other side.
Yes.
but like you said, we have young ones, we have children. How do we balance that out? How do we keep their feet on terra firma while they consume all these fairy tales? And social media also further
Confirms it.
compounds
We just
this
have to keep
situation.
talking about it, and that's what I'm passionate about. We have to keep telling them, and honestly, you know, if I get so earnest here, please forgive me. Every single one of us here who has young children who are of marriageable age, you must be talking. You know, you may think they're not hearing. You have to keep talking. Love is not enough. Even money, because you see, if money were the thing that makes marriage happy, Hollywood people will not be divorcing now because the kind of money that they have. Do you understand? They won't. So it's not money. It's the ability to make up your mind that I've chosen according to certain parameters, and I'm committed to this. Now, if you've already... Okay, let me not use the examples I want to use.
Let's
move
because
on.
even me, the next
Let's
question
just
will
hold
take
it.
us
Yes.
in a different direction. Okay, so several of the case studies in the book show how attraction can sometimes hide deeper incompatibilities. Now, tell me why even some of the most intelligent people often miss the warning signs before marriage.
Because I don't know, somehow with Matt, you see, it was actually in this store. I'm sure she's watching, but I won't mention her name. I met a young girl in this bookshop who beautifully turned out, you understand, and, you know, dressed nicely, young girl, you know, hair, nice, wig, everything, high heels. And I said to her, I'm doing a program, because I'm running a program on WhatsApp. And I said to her, I'm running this program on WhatsApp. It's 10,000 naira. And because I wanted to get a wide range of young people. And she says to me, she's never met me before. She just I guess, just the way I approached her and all that. So she said, hey, auntie, why can't you do it for 5? That's what she said to me. And what I said to her, my darling, you know, this is the problem. Everybody, I hear hall for wedding is 15, 20 million. Decoration is, I'm hearing, what's that? I heard the other day that somebody said 80 million of one ridiculous thing. Then you will do food. You will do dress that has bustier and that you tie at the back. Then you will wear heel. Then you will do your hair. Then you will call makeup artist that will do gele. Then you will do photo shoots. Thank you. And then you will do destination something. And then 10,000 naira. This girl is a young girl working, earns money. Even if you told many, okay, let me not use the people here, even people, my peers and my associates and all that, to maybe sponsor 100 people for something that can at least begin to set their heads correct. Everybody just kind of, I don't know, when it comes to marriage, nobody wants to do anything. And you spend all this money, but you don't prepare that person for what they need to be prepared for. As a mindset. Because somehow we think marriage is going to work just because we love each other, and the definition of love is wrong anyway, but just because we love each other, just because we're good people, just because we go to church, just because we come from good families, and that is a lie. It has been proven time and time again. So the reason is that we don't think marriage needs to be worked on. We think it just works, but the truth is marriage only works if you work it. That's the actual truth. And so all of us have to, if you're not teaching things like I am, sponsor people who are. If you want to give somebody a gift, you can, by all means, give them a 15 million naira haul, but also give them a 100,000 naira course to learn something about what they're supposed to be involved in. It's a lifelong venture. It stands the opportunity to derail everything else you're doing. It can derail everything else. Marriage is the underpinning. Everybody comes from somewhere. Even if they just had somebody inside the gutter, they came from a situation where a man and a woman came together and produced them. We don't take it seriously enough. None of us.
What about the religious houses? I'm Christian. Respectfully, I don't know what goes on in the mosque, whether they're prepared. But doesn't the church fill that gap for Christian young couples?
You see, the way I'll answer that, I'm careful because I am the church. What I will say is that it does. But a lot of times when people are coming to us, there's a fait accompli. They're with the person, likely already sleeping with the person. I believe we should start earlier. I know I have a friend here who deals with values that starts from young children. I'm not saying we should teach young children about marriage, but it's a breakdown when, even from when people are little, they're not brought up to value themselves, whether they have money or not. Their father, my man, Papa no be Dangote or something, but I go day okay. You understand? Yes. But let's say, for instance, I had a domestic staff one time who I happened to go to her house. And do you know, she was living in like a one-roomish sort of place. But one side, she had made it into like her kitchen sort of place. Another side was like, I'm exaggerating a bit, but her bathroom kind of place, had this thing. She had made all her cutlery. She may have even gone to bend down or wherever to get it, was matched. She had red cutlery within her own means. So what am I trying to say? Values are just values. That's the truth. And these values need to start from when people are young. We have a responsibility. And for the African woman, we have a responsibility to train our men. We have a sacred responsibility to train our men, particularly, and I'm not being biased here, but let's just put it there.
Thank you very
Did
much.
I answer that?
Yes, I completely agree. So everybody is receiving, nobody is giving, nobody has a question, comment. Yes, ma'am, please. Please. Okay. Okay, hold.
Ooh.
I heard a male voice.
Yes, sir.
We're coming, sir, we're coming. Mama, please sit down. It's so informal.
Thank you very much, Amaka. In fact, I want everyone present here to give you a round of applause for bringing us here for this conversation. You have delved into the question I was going to ask. First has to do with, we were just discussing here that we are married counselors. When we were talking about counseling in the church, whether it was fast-tracked or it actually passed through the normal course, this couple have made up their minds on what they want to do. We cannot give them that at the point of their getting married. What they're after is just the wedding and after wedding. Then my question is, we give birth to these men. We give birth to these women. Why can't we start from conception to train them this value system about marriage? Because if we don't do that, we are usually at the receiving end. Women, we are usually, why can't we now come together like we have done today and start? It's never too late. It is never too late. It is never too late. We can't start that to train them for this value proposition in marriage. Thank you.
Let me play the devil's advocate. Ma'am, respectfully, you said that we need to come together and start raising our children. You said children, not did you say our girls or our boys? Our children towards marriage. Is it not the same culture that's raising our girls to be submissive? Is it not our girls? Is it not the same culture raising our girls to remain there regardless? I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I'm going to give the microphone to a gentleman.
I'd like to make a comment about your question. That culture is changing, actually.
Which one? The one I just asked?
Yeah,
Amen, amen.
You must stay there. It's changing. And this is 2026. And no culture, no man, for that matter, is going to ask her daughter to stay in there if she's being abused in a marriage. I'm not going to do that. I'm a dad.
God bless you.
So that culture is changing. But the question what prompted my wanting to ask a question was what Maka said about we have to work on our voice, and I think the last speaker also harped a little bit on it when she was speaking. That is very important. I walked in here, you're talking about marriage. It takes two to tango. Forget about what the West, how the West has defined marriage these days. It takes a man and a woman to be in a proper marriage, what we understand as marriage. And I walked in here, and I almost walked out because I was literally, I felt I was the only man in the room before I saw a few other men. So what you're saying is important. I think you're doing a fantastic work, Maka. We have been through this, me and you. We have private conversations about it. But if we're going to have a situation where it is only the women who will come for events like this, you'll be hitting your head against the brick wall. We have to find a way to target the men, and I think that should start. As moms, you guys need to start doing that work from home. From right when
You see, we have started.
the boys are
See,
vetted, you need to work on
we
that.
have started.
Because it is, and regardless of whether their dads are role models, good role models for marriages or not, you have to work on your boys, because it is what a man is. It's how a man is raised to see and treat a woman. That is what he's going to do when he becomes an adult. So I think a bulk of the work, we must find a way to penetrate the men folk, and start doing the work also as soon as the boys are vetted. And these days too, the girls, because they're losing it. They're losing it. I'm hearing stuff like, when we were, I grew up in the Mills and Boone era too, so, and we knew what romance was. We, we dated girls, and money wasn't an issue. It was a beautiful thing. But these days, I hear the girls say the guys can't approach them for talking stage or something if they don't put money on the table or something. What world are we living in? So there's a whole lot of work to be done by us men, but I believe a bulk of the work, women raise children, let's face it.
Give me my microphone. Thank you so much.
A man will teach a man how to be a man, true, but the problem we're having, I think, is that many men have not been trained. They just haven't. So you can't give what you don't have. So I do agree that it's the men, and there are some men, let me not mention names here, who are trying to bring the men together. But I also agree that somehow, and I'm telling myself this too, we need to bring more men into the room, because you can only give what you have. And many men, no offense, don't have what they need to give.
Okay.
You know.
Good afternoon, everyone. Amaka,
Yes.
good afternoon.
Abiola, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, I'm not going to say much. Amaka and myself, we are colleagues. I'm also an author. I've written a book on essentials of a successful marriage, a step-by-step guide. I just want to share an experience, that I once had when I was at a function, a marriage setting like this. And so we're telling people to write questions of what they wanted, about, after the talk about marriage and all that. And one young person said, why should I marry? That, the modeling, the marriages that they've seen is not motivating them to get married. And so my answer to that person was to say that, look, I don't know who you are, but I want to take responsibility for for our generation of baby bloomers. We may have failed you in marriage. We have not modeled to you what the right marriage should be, the right thing to do. And for me, beyond teaching, I'm bringing out this modeling, because you can't give what you don't have. You need to model what marriage, both the man and the woman. It is not just a woman's job. The reason why we're here today is because, maybe part of the reason why all these things that is happening now is because men are not doing the job that they should be doing. So we should be modeling what this marriage should be to our children. And so I answered this person, I really do apologize, because we didn't know better. When we were getting married, we didn't have all those things that everybody's enjoying now. Most of us didn't even go through marriage counseling. There was no knowledge, there were no books to read. But so we did those things the way we could. But now, nobody has an excuse not to be able to do it right, because there are books to read. There are counselors to speak to. I've in the course of counseling, because I'm also a counselor like Amaka, I've seen couples that, that after 8 months of marriage, they're already having problems. In fact, they're separated. And I asked them, did you do any counseling? They said no. So just like Amaka said, we put so much emphasis on the preamble than the amble. The preamble is, the marriage. We put everything, Ashebi and whatever, but the marriage itself, we do not actually invest in anything. We don't go for counseling. We don't read books. If you don't want to go for counseling, you can read books. There's knowledge everywhere. So no young person should fail in marriage because we did not model it right. Yes, we agree we did not model it right, but that is not an excuse for you. You can model it right. You can make that choice that, look, I want to make it work. And like Amaka said, marriage is work. There are no perfect marriages. I was also a Mills and Boone person, happily ever after. There are no, just successful marriages. And successful marriages takes two people who are committed to say, I am going to be in this marriage on the long run, and I'm going to be forgiving my spouse for everything that my spouse does, except when it is physical abuse, which we don't really condone. So I just want to put that here. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Amaka, for inviting me. I feel like I'm the youngest in the room. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Right. Okay, I will take it from my upbringing, and I believe a lot of ladies in my generation were raised like this. There's an Igbo saying that says that if the home is good, it's the woman's responsibility. If the home is bad, it's still the woman's responsibility. So that was the mindset we were raised with that gives this ideology of if the woman has to raise the children. The woman has to do this. The woman has to do that. But I also understand the word parenting. Parent is not one individual. Parent is two people that came together, permit my English, had sex and had babies. So it's not one person's responsibility to raise that child. I take a leaf from what you said about modeling, right? I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was playing with my husband, and my daughter walks in and she makes this, I'm saying, well, what's wrong with you? She said, you people are always playing. I say, yes, what else do we have to do? And then she now goes, I would love to have a marriage like yours. And my husband was excited. I said, okay, calm down. Let's first find out from her, what kind of marriage is she seeing to want to have the kind of marriage like us, right? And so a little conversation here and there, and we realized that she's 10. It was all around what she sees, the play, the laugh. You're always defending mommy. Mommy is always right, and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, she's still in that phase. But one thing I know, I have a son, 7-year-old son. He was potty trained by his dad, not me. It's his dad that takes him to the bathroom and tells him this is where to aim, this is how to aim, this is what to do, this is how not to do it, right? And over time, he picked it. As a counselor of 13 years, I found out that men are not taught. Men are mentored. They need to see something working to be able to want to be like that and to act like that. And it has to be working or not working, right? You can't put a man in a room and say, do this, do that, do that. Okay, where is it? How is he doing? How is he moving? They are mentored. They are not taught. That's to say, your son learns how to treat a woman from the way his father treats his mother. And your daughter learns how to be treated, again, from the way her father treats her mother. So when she sees her father battering her mother, and her mother accepts it, and her mother succumbs to it, she also learns that, oh, beating is okay, this is how I should react to it. So it's a two-way street. It's not one person's job to raise a child.
This is not a war, no. We are not blaming one another. If anything, we're trying to find ways to work together.
So let's start with something biblical. Because we're told that no longer will the parent eat sour fruits and the children's teeth be set on edge. No matter what the child visits, what he sees, we can break it. So we go back to what the previous speaker before that has said. Let us convene and have these kids, teach them the new normal. After all, in our time, we didn't have computers. There's so much to learn out there. And you can only give what you have. But don't forget that you die when you stop learning. How are our boys raised? Our boys are trained to be providers. That is what they see their fathers doing. So they are emotionally bereft. We send our kids off, at least in Nigeria, most of us, to boarding school early. So as mothers, as naturals, truly we do have more to do with the boys. With the girls, I mean, my son cooks in the kitchen. With the girls, yes. But now we're telling them, I mean, I'll give an example. Someone was talking about talking, chatting. There are various stages of dating now. And then you have the girls, not the girls from our homes, of course, but saying, oh, I want a phone, I wanted this, I want... We must teach our daughters not to receive those kind of gifts. No, it's true. Because you cannot, you get better at what you do. We're better nurturers because we're at home nurturing the kids. The men are better at making money because they're doing this 24/7, so they become good at it. It's like the scientists that make antibiotics. They hack at it every day, and then they become, geniuses. So these guys are honing in the skills of making money. We need to bring the other side of the relationship into focus. So what do we call a holiday? What are the things that should matter to us at home? It's not when your husband comes and brings you expensive gifts, or when your son is... I remember, I'm with some young boys, and they want to go to the park with some girls. Why are we going to the park every day? This is a Nigerian guy. Why are we going to the park every day? What am I going to do with the park? Yes, because where she's coming from, things are only tangible when they're held or when it's financial. So as a group, if we put these young children together, like we call them for fellowship and stuff like that, and we talk relationship, we drum these things in, that, and I step away from marriage. I said to Amaka when I spoke to her, I said, we don't advertise courses. Don't start with advertising courses for marriage. Start with advertising courses for relationships. Because you have to invest in those relationships before they become marriages. A lot of people watch the marriages and they don't want to be it. It's not what they want. So when you say marriage is shut down, but you say, in your relationship, if I want something from a friend as a girl, I have to invest in it. So likewise, let's invest in relationships. If you say that to the children, then they'll come around and, it will be a meaningful discussion.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I just want to respond. Yeah, that's really so good. And
Can
it
you
really...
please give yourselves a round of
Yes.
applause. I love this audience. Thank you. Thank you
And
so
again,
much.
it just boils down, you see, this whole thing boils down really to a conversation, which is really the lifeblood of any relationship. Because you see, we live in a fallen world. So everybody is not going to come from the perfect family where mommy and daddy loved each other and we're doing everything right, having the right conversations. There are going to be situations that are not ideal. But even in those situations that are not ideal, there's a communication to the people. We have a responsibility of a communication to the people who are coming up. Because somewhere it has to break. The way we're going with marriage, for us, how they say the woman builds the home? For many of us, especially the women here, no offense to the men, yes, we have been brought up with stick it out. Build your home. You are the person who holds everything together. We've grown up with that. Our girls haven't. And what we're going to have, if we're not careful, is a situation where people are not going to be able to hack it in marriage, these younger people, and they're just going to be stepping out, and that's going to be chaos. So whether the person came from an ideal situation or not, these conversations must be had. Some people will listen, some won't. Yes, they're intangible things. Money is not everything. Many African men, whether poor or rich, have been brought up to believe I should provide. But they can't provide comfort, they can't provide empathy, they can't provide compassion, they can't walk in the park, or whatever walking in the park means traditionally, if some people don't want to walk in the park. Life must be lived holistically. And these are the conversations we need to have, because I will continue to say, marriage is the underpinning of everything. We talk about, sometimes when I go on LinkedIn and we're talking, it's as if you're getting, but what happens in the bedroom affects the boardroom. How high you can go in whatever you choose is going to be determined to a large degree by what this primary relationship can make or mar you. So these conversations are essential. Ideal situations, we live in a fallen world. Nothing is going to be ideal. But it's important that the principles that underpin things are amplified. And I want to say this. I come from a Christian, I don't even, I'm a born-again Christian, let me put it that way. But people come from various faiths. You see, the important thing is understanding. There's one extreme example I always use. Okay, let me not use it on camera here, but let me just say this. People have to agree with what they agree. So, for instance, what I think a wife is, whoever I'm with must believe also that that's what a wife is. Because you see, if both of us decide that what's what wife means, we're likely to be good. What my husband believes a husband is what I need to, we have to agree that that's what we believe it is. And if there are any discrepancies, then we have to see whether we can get over them or not. And one of the biggest problems is people are going in with expectations that the other person knows nothing about and doesn't even agree with. And these conversations are difficult to have. So if you know who you are before you ever meet anybody, you've identified some things. It may not be all, but you've identified some. Then you know them, that you know them. If you're engaged or dating seriously, there are discussions that need to be had. I've always told my children, see, physical intimacy will cloud judgment. Good physical intimacy will cloud judgment even further. So I tell my children, whatever you're getting up to, the Lord is on the throne. But let us just say that. Make sure you're having the right conversations before you get encumbered in that way. Then for those of us who are married, there's an Igbo proverb, whenever you wake up is your morning. Because you see, if you don't, you see the structure, if the foundation is wrong, the structure on top, the integrity is never going to be sure. And that's why when you get into marriage, sometimes a little bit of a different set of rules begin to apply because it's a little bit more difficult. But the only way to then move forward would be to knock down the existing structure, strengthen the foundation, and then come up again. So there may be different conversations for each side, but the issue is there need to be conversations because marriage is at a critical point. I tell you, people are coming together or are already together not having the conversations, and these conversations are difficult to have. But just because something is difficult to do doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. So that's kind of where I'd land with it. I don't know.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We're going to go right it quickly into, we have about 3 more questions to go, covering ground nicely. You're a wonderful audience.
Very interactive,
so
yeah.
Very interactive. The book explores culture, tribe, family expectations, money, faith, and upbringing. Of all the areas where couples become misaligned, which do you see causing the greatest problems in real life?
Communication. Because you see, if both of us agree that, okay, I'm going to use the example, it's shock value, but I'm going to use it anyway. If both of us agree that we wake up at 12 midnight and we do human sacrifice, if both of us are in agreement with it, we're not going to have a problem. 12 midnight, both of us will wake up, we do what we need to do. And we've discussed it before. You agree with me that this is what we're going to be doing. Another real example, this is another true story. Somebody married and looked out of the window, and it's Igbo people, and she looked out the window, she saw her husband, who is a first son, with her father-in-law, who was a first son, standing by an open grave, and they had pushed a live cow inside it. She was aghast. She had never heard or seen such. She got back inside, I'm abridging, asks the husband, what's happening? In our family, every last day, or what's December 31st, we bury live cow. You understand? So what does she do at that stage? Does she leave? Does she stay? Does she let her first son also be doing life sacrifice? So you see, communication. You need to communicate. And this communication, that's why for pre-premarital classes, you learn how to communicate. It cannot be what's wrong as women do nothing. What is wrong? I do not like the way you spoke to me yesterday. It made me feel bad and embarrassed. I don't think it's good for us. Simple. So many of us, myself included, we need to learn how to communicate concisely and clearly about what we really want and what we don't want. And this comes from a confidence in self. So nobody's telling you you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. Ideally, these things should be done beforehand. Sadly, they're not. So whenever you discover it in your marriage, you may have to begin to communicate it. And if the other person doesn't, then there's something I call these 3 things. There are only 3 things you can do at that stage. I'm not going to talk about them here. So what I'm saying is, what is it? Short answer, communication.
Okay. We will talk about it because there's only one bonus question on this list, but I have another bonus question. All right.
And my books cover all these things anyway.
Yes.
Yes.
That's also something I would like to point out. Each and every, it's almost, let me ask you, is it that they're all connected and you read them chronologically, or you can just pick one and it... it
You-
touches on different aspects.
You can kind of pick anyone. My brother-in-law is here, and my brother-in-laws are here. But why I say that to say it's an integrated system, and that's what I'm saying now. It has to be an integrated system. You could pick anyone depending on where you are. For instance, if you had never been through infidelity, for instance, people might think, why do I need to read 49 ways to get rid of the other woman without being caught? But the truth of the matter is you might be preventative, it might be knowledge, it might be what you want to use and help another person. If you wanted to talk about communication, for instance, how to get your wife to swing from the chandelier in a red negligee. How do I speak to my man to get him to understand these things we're saying that we feel as women that many men are not understanding? And for me as a man, what does my wife's language really mean? There has to be an interest in learning that. Or if you're, so each of the books has, where did you put your organ? I don't want to tell you what my brother-in-law said about that. And yes, it is that organ. What are the implications of such? What are the implications of such? So each book covers something about marriage. It does. And it's an integrated system that we all must be involved in. So each book speaks to something different, but it's part of a collective system.
Fantastic. You have spent more than 25 years involved in premarital counseling. Looking back, what are some of the conversations couples most need to have before marriage and often avoid?
Oh. Well, on my course, I have 10 things. I mean, money is an issue. Communication is an issue. Physical intimacy is an issue. Relationship with parents and in-laws is an issue. What else? Roles. What are the roles? Who does what? You understand? There's a lot of confusion about what is a wife. What should a wife do? What is in these day and age? The lines are so blurred. What does a woman do? What does a man do? That's 5. I've got a number of them. Yeah, parenting. Children. Faith is a really thing. Core values. I don't even like to go to Christianese, even though I am a Christian. You see, faith. What do you believe in? What is inside you that you use to navigate the course of your life? You understand? So faith, core values. What are your values? What do you like? What don't you like? There's so many conversations. And again, I want to reiterate, they're hard to have. But I encourage everybody to try to have them. And most especially for our children. Most especially.
Amen, amen. One of the recurring themes in the book is that many marital struggles begin long before the wedding day. Shy.
Marriage.
Marriage. What patterns do people carry into marriage that they often don't recognize until many years later?
So, for instance, a child who grew up in a home where she was always told she's too much. So you say this, they say you need to be quiet, or they say adults know everything, or they say, so that child learns to shut down. Don't express yourself. Don't give your opinion. And in Africa, I heard somebody said one time, I said, it's only in Africa where we shut down our youth. Don't speak, adults are speaking. You understand? But the Bible said out of the mouths of babes and sucklings. So, the ability, when you suppress children, and everything has a balance. You understand? So what I would say, what are the things? Some of the things are like, I get angry. Why do I get angry? What's my trigger? Maybe I saw my mom as a more dominant woman and it didn't pay her off. And my father, I'm just using in the general context, you understand? But so I now don't want to be a dominant woman. I want to just retreat into myself. Let the man take every decision because maybe my father was not as dominant. Or you grew up in a home where your father was so dominant and your mother was so laid back, and you say to yourself, okay, now I'm going to be the one that is just going to be so dominant. There are all kinds of little schemas we take, that deep-seated in our psyche. Or, so because of that, each time somebody says something to you, just rise up in anger and you confront it. So these are things you have to train yourself to do. We train children to go to the bathroom. We train them on how to eat. We train people in our work. Many people, what they study in school is not what they're working on. They will go for training. They will do. So maybe I recognize I'm somebody who gets really worked up. Anything anybody says to me just makes me angry. I must recognize that and deal with it. Those are the kind of things that people go into marriage with and they become an issue. Or a woman who, like Yadera, who grew up in the lap of luxury. You understand? And so she cannot slum it in business class. It's not happening. You understand? So maybe she might not want to hook up with a man who she has not discussed the fact, and these are frivolous examples, but they bring the point home. She might not want to hook up with a man who can't afford to send her first class, or at least she wants to discuss it with him. How are we going to do it? It's frivolous, but it speaks to the matter. Or let me use another frivolous example. I love the Christmas tree. Every Christmas, we put up our Christmas tree on December 1st, and then we decorate it, and then the man puts the star on the top. Then the night before Christmas, I'll be Christmas Eve, when do we open presents again? Is it Christmas morning or something? Everybody comes together and do something. Then this is what you have done maybe in your home, and this is what you like. It's frivolous, but it speaks to the point. But you marry a man who, in their own house, Christmas, we make Christmas dress, if we can afford it to, and then we eat rice. You see, it seems trivial, but it seems trivial, but these are little things that speak to the point, that conversations must be had. What does money mean to me? What does a good lifestyle mean to me? Does a good lifestyle mean to me, as Omar said, walking in the park, holding hands, and just dreaming about our future? We can't really afford a Maybach, but hey, wouldn't it be nice to have one? And we just, Or is my own that, no, I don't want to be doing any park walking. Mosquito is going to bite me, please. I just want you to buy me my Birkin and my something. That's what I consider to be a good lifestyle. These are real conversations. Mm-hmm. It seems frivolous. It seems the examples may not be quite right, but these are important discussions to have. They're hard to have, but not having them is even harder.
Perfect. And let me shock you. They're not. The examples are not frivolous at all. Relationships have gone asunder for even more.
And these things build up. So you might suck it in. You might suck it in, you might suck this, you might suck up not walking in the park. You might suck up for a man who thinks, I want you to respect. You're going to call me sir. When you see me, call me sir. You understand? These things will build up and then they burst. You see, what is buried...
Resentment.
I have a saying, what you discuss in peace, what you don't discuss in peacetime, you're going to discuss in war. You will discuss it in war.
And one of the worst things that can happen in a relationship is when resentment begins to build.
So people come into my office, for instance, for counsel. You can't even pinpoint the problem. It's so deep-seated and convoluted that you don't even know where to begin because so much has happened. So much.
Absolutely. Okay, we're down to... Why are you peeking? Are you tired?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm leaving the time. Yes, we're done. We're almost done, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. We have 2 official questions left. But I want to ask... I'm taking advantage again as the woman with the mic. I want to ask a question. The best time to read this book, and in fact, the majority, if not all of your books, is before you even begin to think about marriage. Most of the stuff we've talked about today has been prepared for people preparing, get to know thyself, get to figure it out, have the hard conversations. I am willing to bet good money that there are people, even if they're not present in the room, that will be watching online, who are currently married, who are misaligned, who are listening to this and wondering to themselves, okay, how do we reset? How can we reboot? How can we stop? Do we do a hard stop and go back? Is it possible to go back to the foundation and rebuild? I think that's the question.
You see, one of the things you said, what are the areas that people need to discuss when they get married? One of the ones I mentioned, I think I missed out maybe 3 or 4, but one of the ones I didn't mention that I'm going to mention now are vows. Vows. Most of us went through some form of wedding for those who are married, and vows were said. And this is where core beliefs come into play. So let me just take the one I know, as the Christian vow. No offense to anyone who is not a Christian or anyone listening who is not. I can only speak about what I know. And that vow says, I take thee, and you say the name of the person in purple, implying that you know the person, to be my lawful wedded wife or husband, to love and to cherish. From this day forward, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, and it goes on and on. What are you committing to do? So if you're already married, what did you commit to do? Now, these are questions that are difficult to answer straight up because situations differ. But just take the underpinning, the principle under it. What did you vow to do? Now, we're not talking about situations where you woke up in the night and they're holding a sword about to stab you, or where you're constantly in some kind. I'm very extreme when I speak. They're always telling me in my family, I'm an extremist, I guess. But it's not talking about situations like that, or situations where there is actual so much abuse, and not just physical, even emotional. I'm talking about 2 people who are in a marriage. They're not fulfilled. They're not happy. They're going to have conversations. They're going to have to go back to what they vowed to do. And this is why I can never go forward without, first of all, going back to these young people. What you need to understand the implications of what you're saying. For me, what kind of encapsulates it all is a book, and I'm just going to go all Christianese here now. You know, where you go, I will go. Where you die, I will die. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Let God do whatever to me, if anything but death part us. You see, this embodies the spirit of marriage for those of us who are married. I'm not saying that this means that you should die there, but I'm just saying this is the ideal. And so for anybody who is married, who is in a difficult situation, they're going to have to assess themselves, the situation, because you see, I don't want to be quoted. Let's suffice it to say.
You wrote a book, ma'am. You wrote 8 books. She wrote 8 books and she doesn't want to be quoted.
I don't want to be quoted with this because if you take it out of context, it's not going to work. So this embodying the spirit of marriage it is what you're going to need to look at. But you see, the problem here is that both parties need to agree that something is not okay. Then we now look at what we said we were going to do and then move forward with that. And there may have to be a situation where you believe what you two of you say until it's proved otherwise. But you see, a lot of situations, we live in a fallen world, a lot of situations are not ideal. I'm going to rest it there. And if you find yourself in that situation, I will repeat these 3 things. In fact, I think those 3 things are in Amboom. There are only 3 things you can do. I've looked at it every which way. You have 3 options, and there's no other option.
I guess you're gonna, if you're in that situation, and you're gonna have to get the book and find out what the 3 options are. Okay, that was a heavy response, Sha. I don't know, or is it just me? Well, marriage is deep. Okay, I'm gonna switch it. I'm gonna do the bonus question before I end with number 10.
Okay.
You've said before that what happens in the home eventually affects communities, nations, and generations. That is how profound marriage is. How does the choice of a spouse become not just a personal decision, but a societal and even transgenerational one?
Okay. So to answer it as short as I can, number 1, rabbit no dey born frog. It just doesn't. It doesn't happen. You understand? And even the word of God says everything reproduces after its own kind. So remember that 2 of you, even if we look at it in the plainly physical sense, 2 people are going to come together, they're going to be physically intimate, and they're going to produce children. And those children are going to take the truth. That's why somebody looks like their father, looks like their mother. And you see, in the thing, when you plant 2, I don't know, funnily enough, I grew up in the village for some time, surprisingly, I guess. If you put 3 grains of, I don't know, with my grandmother, when she's planting corn, she puts about 3 or 4 grains in the sand and covers it with soil. And what comes up is a whole stalk of corn, fully matured, with multiple thousands of seeds on it. Everything reproduces after its own kind. And this is why we must be careful for our children. This is why it's critical for the choice of partner, because everything reproduces after its own kind. There are interventions you can do. You can put manure, you can, there's things you can do, but the principle remains the same. So it's very important. For those of us in marriage, it's transgenerational because what we produce, we're going to produce after our own kind. Unless there's some kind of intervention, there's going to be a problem. So it becomes transgenerational. This is why marriage is so critical. It affects everything, generations to come, how innovative they can be, how settled they can be, how mentally stable they can be. So that's just simply the answer I would give you, that everything multiplies after its own kind. You can never plant orange and get apple. It doesn't happen.
All right.
And this is why we must take marriage serious. Even for the people who are MDs and captains of industry, what happens in the bedroom affects the boardroom. In fact, which book of mine, I'm not sure which of my books, maybe it's Where Did You Put Your Organ, where I talk about 2 men. It's 12 and 2 more. I call it a very Nigerian sort of story. There is a man who sorts himself, has a home, something, what he does at work. And there's another man, something, and how he operates at work. Even for a woman, let's say you get into this, your dream job, and you're growing high, but you have a man who can't handle it. You know it's a problem. It's going to truncate you. It's going to happen. It's going to truncate you. And vice versa. Maybe you marry a woman who cannot rise up to where you're rising up to. still becomes a problem. You know, when we talk about unequally yoked, Christian-wise, we talk about religion, but it's not just religion. There's many ways you can be unequally yoked. It's very important that we're not unequally
Can you
yoked.
say that again? Please.
No, that when we talk about unequally yoked, it's not just about religion. It's about being unequally yoked in various areas of life. This is why marriage has to be an intentional decision. You're marrying the father of your children. You're marrying the mother of your children. God forbid anything should happen to you. God forbid. You're marrying into the family that may be the people who will influence your children and thereby your generations to come. Marriage is serious business, so it is. It is.
Marriage is serious business.
And that's why all of us have to commit. You know how they say CSR? All of us must commit to doing something towards ensuring that marriages can thrive. We have to.
All right. Marriages, like you say, marriage is serious business, and it has far-reaching implications and repercussions, not just for the individual, but for the society at large. Because God forbid if you're spawning evil, that's it. You're populating the earth with worse stuff.
It's as simple as that.
So my final question to you today would be, if every young adult had to leave this conversation remembering just one lesson from "and boom, Bob's your uncle, and for real, Fanny's your aunt," what would you want that lesson to be?
Examine yourself. Know yourself so that you're not unequally yoked. Know yourself. Yes, so that you're not unequally yoked. So that each time, whether man or woman, somebody approaches you along the line of, let's take it a bit further, you know, you are able to know what you can and cannot take. And don't get me wrong, you may not know everything. But you see, a kind person is a kind person. A person who comes from has good core values is somebody that has good core values. You understand? A wicked person is a wicked person. Remember that somebody can have money today and tomorrow they don't have money, whether man or woman. Not to be graphic, although I always like to use graphic examples because they shock. You know, we say tall, dark, and handsome. But, you know, there's some people that have been amputated before and they're no longer tall or whatever. Do you understand? Or I want a body like, well, Christians here, but let's say Beyonce, for instance. People can get fat after having children. So, I mean, come on, our bodies aren't the same as they were. So you're going to have to look for something a little bit deeper. You know, a little bit deeper.
We've had deep and profound conversations today. Regrettably, conversations that too many people have after the fact. So I'm going to charge everybody. Get yourself a copy. Get a copy of this book. Bless the young people in your life. People that are going into, people who are just beginning to date. Make them fully aware that there's an author and in fact, we should start calling you a relationship counselor, because this conversation should start from when you begin to think you want to date, not after you found the person, because like we say, emotions can becloud your judgment. Get a copy of the book. It's titled "And Boom, Bob's Your Uncle, and for real, Fanny is your aunt." Get a copy of any
other
of
books, because it's an integrated system. It is. It's an integrated system.
Insightful, full of wisdom, and drawn from biblical principles. It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely, Ireti.
To sit and moderate this session. Again, you've been a wonderful audience. Thank you for making it enjoyable. Thank you for making it easy. And it's a wrap.